Exactly who or what the Elder Evils are remains in dispute among the rare sources of knowledge about them. Few creatures in the multiverse have any awareness of these beings, and no one can claim to know them all. Some Elder Evils are gods, some are primordials, and some fiends. Yet some scholars versed in esoteric mysteries insist they are none of these, but in fact, are beings set apart from what mortals consider reality. Some Elder Evils are alleged to be of the far realm, while others are thought to be trapped in a particular plane or world, or held in check somehow by wandering stars, imprisoned in the vastness of the night sky. But there is one that is very real, that is well documented, and has a terrifying presence on the material plane. Zargon, the Returner, also called the Invincible Tyrant, is said to be an undying and unkillable evil. Some stories claim Zargon was the original master of the Nine Hells. Others claim him to be a powerful demon prince exiled from the abyss, but it can be surely said that Zargon is a power that inspires madness and terror. Zargon stands 30 feet tall from the nest of his squirming tentacles to the tip of his great black horn. One's eyes cannot help but fall upon Zargon's monstrous head, a wide maw filled with curving teeth that stretch across his reptilian face. He oozes brown slime that hangs from his chin and forms smoking clots on the hardened flesh of his torso. A 7-foot-long horn, speckled with silver flecks, thrusts out from the center of his forehead, and pale yellow fluid weeps from his base. Perhaps the most disturbing thing you would notice about Zargon is the bulging bloody eye just below his horn. A muscular torso bears the signs of countless injuries crisscrossed with seeping wounds and pestilential tumors. In place of arms, he has a knot of flesh at each shoulder, from which 6 long tentacles whip out, each with a thorny bar perfect for embedding itself into flesh and bone. And Zargon's story starts a long time ago, for we do get some background into Zargon's early story. It is said that eons earlier, Zargon had a different position, a very famous position, for he had ruled the 9 Hells of Beator as father of the ancient Beatorians, a long extinct race that preceded the Beatazu. His kingdom was a terrifying place, filled with running slime and rampant evil. When Asmodeus and his allies seized the 9 Hells, they purged the land of the Beatorians, enslaving them and destroying their lords. Asmodeus butchered most himself, but Zargon was resilient to even his worst attacks. Asmodeus discovered he could kill the flesh of the beast Zargon, but not his horn. So he tore it from Zargon's head and flung the hateful spur out of the 9 Hells and into the material plane, where it pierced deep into the earth. After Zargon's horn fell from the 9 Hells of Beator, Zargon's flesh grew around it again, reforming his body around the horn. Once restored, Zargon was enraged. He craved another chance to fight Asmodeus and the other usurpers, but Zargon knew without his armies he stood little chance of reclaiming his realm. So he climbed the shaft created by his horn's descent into the earth, pulling himself from the very earth itself until he emerged centuries later to find himself beneath a massive human city. Many centuries ago, a mighty kingdom named Cysia stood in the heart of a massive and trackless wasteland. It reclaimed the land from the desert, transforming it into fertile farmland. The people prospered and the nation achieved great advances in magic, science, and technologies. As with all cultures, this did not last. The kingdom's success bred complacency and decadence, and the population plunged itself into excess. In the depths beneath the city, workers discovered a cavern with a freshwater lake and enough space to house a small city. Emboldened by this find, mining teams sought out even deeper passages beneath the earth. In time, they discovered a sealed cavern that, unknown to them, was the prison of Zargon, a fiendish being of unknown origins. Naturally, the curious Cynodicians opened the cavern, releasing Zargon after uncounted centuries of imprisonment. In the manner of most fiends, he showed his gratitude by slaying and devouring his liberators. Driven by a great hunger, Zargon made his way through the winding tunnels beneath Cynodicea to the city above. He found the supply of fresh prey there to his liking, and began a killing rampage the likes of which the kingdom had never seen before. Faced with mass panic and an uncontrollable monster, the city's fathers conceived a plan to satiate Zargon in return for regular sacrifices. The fiend agreed to retire permanently to his underground dwelling, and for decades thereafter, the Synodicians bought their survival with the lives of slaves, prisoners of war, and criminals. In time, many Synodicians came to view Zargon as a god. A strange cult grew up around him, and the worship of the old gods, such as Gorm, Usamagaris, and Madarua, fell by the wayside. As the worship of Zargon became the norm, the city itself began to take on aspects of this evil that had corrupted its people, and over time, the kingdom that was once a gleaming beacon of civilization was transformed into a pit of decadence. For years, the kingdom declined, languishing under the yoke of oppression, until one day, barbarian hordes from the north fell upon the city, overwhelming the few soldiers left to man its walls. A charismatic barbarian leader named Zankar was the leader of the sacking of the city. The tribal leader made a terrifying discovery when his horde tore through the nation's capital. This god that the Synodicians worshipped was not some otherworldly being. It was a terrifying monster that lorded over them all, demanding appalling sacrifices to appease its dreadful hunger. Zankar the Barbarian realized the only way he could preserve his own people would be to destroy the beast god, and so he fought the monster for 7 days and nights. Although considered one of the greatest warriors in all the lands, he could not kill the beast. As soon as he struck a blow, Zargon's wounds would heal, and Zankar grew wary, giving the monster the opportunity it finally needed. Within moments of this weakness, the climactic duel came to a sudden and bloody end. The gods themselves blessed Zankar, but he failed. Once the barbarians were done, their leader killed, they finally fled. Little of the once magnificent city remained. The survivors fled to the great cavern beneath the city, where they huddled together while the desert reclaimed the buildings above. The cult of Zargon, whose members had already built living quarters and temples within the cavern in order to live closer to their lord, assumed absolute control over the remaining Synodicians. In return for housing and feeding the refugees, the priests of Zargon demanded and received absolute obedience. In time, the Synodicians adapted to these new surroundings. Succeeding generations were born with white hair, pale skin, and eyes unaccustomed to the light of the sun. They spent their lives tending fields of gigantic mushrooms and herding subterranean beasts. And to keep the population of this underground city under control, the priests of Zargon poisoned the water with a powerful sedative known as the elixir of fantasy. Thus, while away from the fields, most of the Synodicians passed their time in a dreamlike state. Only the tiny sects of Gorm, Usamagaris, and Madarua escaped this fate. Cloistered in the side passages and caverns around the underworld city, the faithful of the old gods plotted to overthrow the new god Zargon and his priests. Mistrust and ancient rivalries prevented the rebels from uniting to face the Zargonites until a pair of powerful heroes from the outside delved into the city. They led the people in an uprising, and it is said that they defeated Zargon himself. Believing their duty complete, the adventurers departed the city for the vast reaches of Norworld and were never heard again. Unknown to them, however, Zargon had not been permanently destroyed, and within weeks of his defeat, he appeared immediately to take his revenge. Rallying his surviving followers, he waged a bloody war known as the Time of Rage. Zargon's troops struck hard and fast, overwhelming the rebels in the underground city before they could cure all the citizens of the poison that produced their dreamlike state. The clerics of the old gods fled for their lives. Some time passed after all of this, and it is said that Zargon could never be fully slain, until the gods themselves came to the earth to punish the kingdom and put Zargon to rest. When they appeared, the Elder Evil mocked them. Zargon even slew some of them and drove off the rest. Zargon seemed unstoppable, but he had one foe remaining. Asmodeus stepped in to stop Zargon for the last time. Since the Lord of Nessus was not a god, he was not vulnerable to the worst of Zargon's powers. Still, he knew he could not slay the beast. Instead, he imprisoned the Elder Evil in solid stone, so only the horn was visible. He then turned to Zargon's Synodician worshippers and buried them alive in the tunnels of their dwelling. Though this last rumor cannot be corroborated, it is at least known that Asmodeus trapped them alive in the tunnels. But to this day, Zargon is not dead. At the very worst, he is trapped in stone. so are his followers. His corruption still leaks and spreads through the city and around it though. With these followers and cult members, he has at least become a minor deity. The idea of Zargon could be enough to free him, and some say it is only a matter of time until someone stumbles upon the tomb of Zargon beneath the city of Cysia, and on that day, Zargon will return.